There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Shawn the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Boy, do I have a book that I'm dying to talk about. I read it for Women in Translation Month in August of 2020, and wow. It's called La Bastarda by the African writer Trifonia Melibea Obono, translated from the Spanish by Schimel. And it's about 100 pages. You could read it in a sitting. I read it over a couple days, which is very short for me. It's a book that I will be going back to. It is the gayest book ever to come out of Africa. Wow! Trifonia Melibea Obono is a journalist and a political scientist from Equatorial Guinea. It is raucously, defiantly, absolutely fabulously queer. And it is not a Shawn book in that I wouldn't say the characters were well developed. It's zany. The plot is all over the place. But I loved it. 4 stars. I couldn't give it 5 stars because I need some character development, and there was really none, or the characters were so all over the map and changed on a dime, and the plot was just ridiculously zany. But the novel has so much queer, feminist, in-your-face, radical energy circulating in it. It was an absolute joy to read. It was unlike anything I've ever read before. So, La Bastarda. In the Fang language, which is an ethnicity native to Equatorial Guinea and some neighboring countries, Gabon and one other, I've forgotten what the other one is. In the Fang language, Okomo means a motherless orphan. La Bastarda means a bastard child, a bastard in Spanish. And that is the name that's given to our first-person narrator. She is young, I believe she's about 16. Her mother has died, she doesn't know who her father is, and she lives with the patriarch of the family, her polygamous grandfather. And he is a bastard in the figurative sense. He is just a jerk and has 2 wives. His first wife is Okomo's grandmother, and she isn't much better. They won't tell her who her father is. They're really down on him, and they just say, don't worry about him. Because she's recently started menstruating, they think that she needs to find a man. I was shifting back and forth as I was reading it, thinking, is this way back in history or is this modern? And you don't really know where you are in time. It's very disorienting in the most wonderful way. So the things that I typically look for, like character development and richly drawn characters, was absent from this, but I was just captivated by the rewarding confusion of not knowing where the hell I was or what was going to happen as soon as I turned the page. In that way, it was kind of like a comic book. I kept thinking this would make a great graphic novel. Just these dramatic shifts, a crazy plot that would have benefited by having those comic bang boom throughout it, because it was just that madcap with a serious social, I don't want to say message, but some people might say it has a social message. It had a serious social undertow to the story that kept slapping me in the face and then laughing at me. That's what I felt, and I mean that in a really positive way. Like, it was just zany and bursting with social political mischief. And Okomo does not come from a happy home. Her grandmother and her step-grandmother hate each other, and they're having rock'em-sock'em fights, and her grandmother is upset because her husband doesn't have sex with her anymore, and she wants to get some kind of a magical potion that costs $50,000 or 50,000, whatever the currency is, and so she wants Okomo to help her scrape together the money that will make her young and attractive to her husband, so he won't always sleep in the next room with his second wife. Meanwhile, Okomo is yearning for her father, and nobody will tell her who her father is, and She is warned against ever having anything to do with these three girls that always travel together, and I'm not going to tell you what happens when she meets them. You just have to discover it for yourself. I mean, among all the other things going on, this was a very sexy novel. Not just sexy. It's not meant to be erotic. There are things about the sexuality of the various characters that are troubling, provocative, comic, interrogative. So she discovers that she's a lesbian, and she finds a girlfriend, but that's a big secret, and she has a cousin who is called Uncle, which makes it very confusing because there is an actual uncle in the story who is unable to reproduce, and so her grandfather wants her to convince the cousin, who is also called Uncle, to sire a child with his sister-in-law, so that the family clan, the name, the progeny will continue. From there, the story gets very queer indeed. There's a lot of homosexuality in the story, and what makes it just shocking and delightful is, if you know anything about homosexuality in Africa, you know that the assholes that run most of the country say it's a foreign import. We don't have it in our culture, and this novel, in this madcap way, locates the queerness of so many of the characters right at the center of the culture of these people, the Fang people, the characters that are judged and persecuted but have their own queer traditions that are at the heart of their culture. And that makes this short novel important, celebratory, in your face. Just, you have to try it. So I've talked long enough. I'm just going to read you the first couple paragraphs. My grandfather was upset that I wanted to find my biological father. That's why he called a family meeting first thing in the afternoon with two goals in mind. The first, to convince me that my father was a degenerate. The second, to accuse me of betraying the principles of the Fang people. He was seated in a comfortable armchair near the main door to our kitchen, a lean-to made from wood and thatch. He stared at me disappointedly. "What you have done, my girl, merits the worst punishment according to Fang customs," he said, pointing an accusatory finger at me. "You know that I'm right. You belong to my tribe. You have nothing to do with the man who," he stammered, trying to find the right word, "with that scoundrel, if he can be called only that, who did the simplest of things so that you were born. The brother of your mother is your father. That's what tradition dictates." Then he ordered me to cut his toenails. Instead of choosing a new razor blade, I picked out a well-sharpened knife. Over the years, my grandfather's nails, belonging as they did to a 70-year-old man who almost never wore shoes, had hardened into my personal burden. I was the one who was forced to look after them, and even the soles of his feet, which regularly suffered serious wounds. People called him Barefoot Osa because of this disgusting habit of his. I worked in silence, as people often do. My grandfather only bothered to come all the way to the kitchen when he needed a favor, or if someone within the polygamous family that was the product of generations of Fang tradition disobeyed him. That particular afternoon, his anger fell on me, his sheltered granddaughter, the girl who everyone called Okomo, the motherless orphan. Talking about this book to you, making this video, I'm tempted to bump up my rating to 5 stars. It was just a complete delight. It's crazy, it's important, you should check it out. Thanks for watching.